So are you ready to really understand how he got those presidential wins, even when it seemed like everything was kind of stacked against him? We're going deep today. We're talking about the marketing, the genius behind those campaigns. And get ready, because we're going to unpack some serious strategy here. We're going way beyond your typical political analysis,
Yeah, it really is fascinating how Trump, he didn't have the usual, political background, but he was able to outsmart people who'd been in the game forever, like Hilary Clinton back in 2016, and more recently Kamala Harris, It all comes down to really understanding what makes voters tick.
It's so true. If you just looked at her resume, Hillary, she had it all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tons of experience, powerful friends, the media loved her.
Yeah.
But Trump won. And then he did it again.
Yeah.
How was that even possible?
Well, his campaigns, they weren't just about policies, They were really masterfully crafted. They tapped into the mood of the public, They made his message impossible to ignore. And he offered solutions, even if those solutions seemed kind of radical. We've got a framework for this. We call it the SAP strategy: sentiment, amplification, proposition.
I love a good framework. Give it to me. So SAP strategy, step by step. Let's start with sentiment analysis. What were some of those anxieties that Trump zeroed in on to really connect with voters?
He was so good at identifying issues that people were already kind of feeling anxious about, take the economy.
Right.
Lots of Americans were frustrated. In 2016, it was things like the war in Afghanistan,
Oh.
dragging on forever, costing a fortune. And then there was Obamacare. People saw their health care costs skyrocketing. And always that worry about jobs going overseas, especially to China. Trump, he hammered on these points over and over.
He even went after politicians in his own party, called them corrupt. That's a risky move. But it really made him look like the outsider, didn't it?
Yeah, totally. It reinforced that idea that he wasn't part of the, Washington, D.C. establishment, the swamp, as he called it. He was the guy willing to shake things up. And then, of course, there's immigration. Huge issue in both elections.
Yeah. He was not afraid to, really use strong language when it came to immigration. Some people even said it was controversial, but he was tapping into those anxieties that some voters had about jobs, wages, even American culture, Need some help, don't know why. Boost your biz, it's a breeze. Positify.ai, the future's bright. Outsource now, reach the sky.
And that sentiment, it actually grew stronger over time. By 2024, a full 4 out of 10 voters, they said they supported deporting undocumented immigrants. That's up from 3 out of 10 just 4 years earlier. Trump, he saw that shift and he used it.
So he was a master of kind of finding those anxieties and fears that were already out there, but he didn't just find them, he made them louder.
Right. How did he amplify his message so that you just couldn't ignore it?
He used this tactic. It's been around forever, but it really works. We call it the outsider siege strategy. Think about guys like Julius Caesar, Napoleon, even Hitler. They all did this to some extent. Wait, so Trump's pulling tactics out of the history books?
Oh, absolutely. They all did this thing where they made themselves into the hero. They were the lone warrior fighting this corrupt, powerful system. Trump just updated it for today. He basically said the whole political establishment, Democrats, Republicans, they're all the enemy. He was the one fighting for the, quote, forgotten American, the businessman who wasn't part of the swamp.
It's kind of brilliant, even if it feels a little manipulative. Plays on that feeling we all have that we need someone to fight for us, take on the people in power.
Exactly. And to amplify his message even more, he knew exactly how to get the media's attention. You can love him or hate him, but you couldn't ignore him. He'd use this bold language, shocking sometimes, and the media, they ate it up.
Yeah, bold statements, controversy, those make for attention-grabbing headlines, for sure.
You know how much free media coverage he got just in 2016? An estimated $1.9 billion worth. Way more than any other candidate.
So he basically, hacked the media. He knew just what to do to get people talking, even if it wasn't always good. It's fascinating and kind of scary how he did that.
And then there's how he talks. It's so direct. And it's all about emotion. Simple language, strong words, no fancy jargon. He skips the logic, goes right for the gut.
He knew how to connect with people on that level, that gut level. Okay, so we've got the sentiment. We've got the amplification. What about the proposition? What were some of the solutions that Trump was offering to fix all those problems he was talking about?
Well, think about the wall, for instance. That was a direct response to those anxieties about immigration and border security. Whether you like the idea or not, it was a solution to a problem that he'd made sure everyone was thinking about.
Right, and what about those promises to bring back jobs from China? renegotiate all those trade deals. Bold moves, right? Some people thought they were radical, but they were aimed at, like, fixing those economic anxieties.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of hope. Even when it comes with some controversy, Trump offered solutions, clear and decisive. He gave people something to believe in. Like, he could actually fix the things they were worried about.
So it's like a formula, right? Figure out what people are worried about, make them more worried, then come in with a promise to fix it all. You might not like how he did it, but you can't say it didn't work. Twice.
It sure did work. And what's interesting is how he tweaked that approach for 2024 going up against Kamala Harris. But before we get into that, I want to know what's standing out to you so far about Trump's, marketing genius. What are you thinking?
Yeah. What surprised you? What, really made sense to you? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts.
It's really something to see those same strategies, the ones that worked against Clinton, that came back in 2024 against Kamala. It's almost like he had this playbook. And honestly, the Democrats, they didn't seem ready for it.
Okay, so back to 2024. Kamala Harris, right? Yeah. She's the vice president, powerful woman. She's got a solid track record. You'd think she'd have this, clear advantage, wouldn't you?
Yeah, on paper, for sure. But Trump, like we were saying, he doesn't play by the usual rules. He skips over all that traditional stuff and he goes right for the heart, just like he did with Hillary.
So how did he, change up his SAP strategy
to
go up against Kamala? Did he, find different anxieties to tap into this time?
The core stuff, it stayed the same, but he adapted it really skillfully, too, to fit 2024. Remember, we talked about that growing support for deportation, that whole anxiety around immigration and border security. It was even stronger by 2024.
So he was playing on a fear that was already getting bigger. What about, economic worries? Things must have been pretty different after the pandemic, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. This time, it wasn't so much about China. It was all about the U.S. being involved in the war in Ukraine. Trump jumped all over that. He was criticizing all the money we were spending on the war, saying it was draining our economy, saying it wasn't even in our best interest, and it resonated with people. People were dealing with inflation, economic uncertainty, all that.
So it was still that America First message, but he tailored it to what people were worried about right then.
Yeah.
Okay, so he nailed the sentiment part. What about amplification? Did he still do the whole outsider thing, even though he's already been president?
He did. And it worked. This time, the Biden administration, they were the corrupt establishment. The ones he had to take down. He made them look out of touch, incompetent, like they were just doing favors for special interests. It was the same playbook from 2016 against the swamp. He just had a new target.
So even though he was the ultimate insider just a few years before, he managed to make himself the outsider all over again. That's kind of amazing. And kind of confusing.
It's all about branding, narrative. He knows how to tell a story, one that people connect with emotionally, even if, he bends the truth a little.
Okay, and let's not forget how good he is at, grabbing the spotlight. Did he still get all that free media coverage in 2024?
We don't have the exact numbers yet, but you could definitely see Trump was all over the news. His rallies, his tweets, all the controversial stuff he said. It got a ton of attention. It kind of overshadowed Harris's campaign.
Yeah, it seemed like Kamala, she had trouble, telling her own story. It felt like she was always reacting to Trump instead of, setting her own agenda.
You've hit on something really important there. While Harris was focused on criticizing Trump, pointing out his flaws, she missed a chance to say, this is what my presidency would look like, this is what I'm going to do. People might have known what they were against, but they didn't really know what they were voting for.
It's like that saying, right? You can't beat something with nothing. If you want to fight a negative message, one that's all about fear, you need a positive one, something inspiring. And let's be honest, Trump, he's really good at tapping into fear and anger.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the last case, the proposition. What were the solutions this time around? What was the hope that he offered to a country that was, facing uncertainty and division?
Well, we already mentioned a few, right? Like stopping all that wasteful spending on the war, getting tougher on immigration, bringing back manufacturing jobs. That was all big in his platform. What else stands out to you?
His promise to make America a, quote, manufacturing superpower again, that really resonated with some people, especially people in places where lots of jobs had disappeared. It was like he was tapping into this desire for America to be, the biggest, the strongest economy in the world again.
It was a simple message, but powerful. And it connected with that very real economic anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, so He identified those anxieties, the war, the loss of jobs, all that. He made them louder with his outsider story and by basically being really good at getting the media's attention. And then he offered solutions. Solutions that sounded simple, even though the problems were really complicated. Same formula. Worked again.
It did. And it reminds us that in politics, in persuasion, understanding how people are feeling and telling a story that connects with those feelings, that can be more powerful than experience, policies, even facts.
Okay, before we get to the last part of our deep dive, let's pause for a second. What surprised you the most about Trump's strategy? What really resonated with you? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
You know, it's amazing how Trump really got it. He understood those anxieties, those deep-seated fears people had, and he used them. Makes you think, right, what does it say about us, about the country, if those anxieties are so strong that someone can, win an election by tapping into them? You've hit on something really important there. It wasn't just Trump being clever, It's that there were these anxieties just below the surface, waiting for someone to exploit them. Economic fears, cultural shifts, maybe people just wanted things to be simpler like they used to be. All that play a part in both his wins.
So it's not just Trump's playbook. It's the ground it landed on.
Yeah.
If those anxieties weren't already there, his message wouldn't have worked.
Right. And that's something both parties, they got to figure out. How do you deal with those anxieties in a way that's real, that actually helps, and that doesn't, divide people even more? It's a tough one for anyone in politics these days.
Yeah, if you ignore them or you say, oh, those are stupid anxieties,
Yeah.
just let someone like Trump use them, right? It's a tough balance.
It really is. Okay, so big picture, what have we learned from our deep dive into Trump's marketing magic? Lesson number 1, you got to understand what your audience really cares about. What keeps them up at night? That's true for anything, politics, business, even just talking to your family.
It's that emotional connection, right? You got to speak to people's fears, their hopes, their dreams. You might not like how Trump did it, but you can't deny he knew how to do it.
Number 2, bold moves, even controversial ones, they get attention. In a world where there's just so much information, the people who stand out, the ones who shake things up, those are the ones we listen to.
Think about it. If Trump had played it safe, would we even be talking about him? Probably not. He knew being different, even if people hated it, that was a powerful move.
And finally, simple language, emotional appeal, they beat complex arguments more often than not. Trump, he was the master of the soundbite, He could take a complicated issue, boil it down to a few words, and bam, he'd got you feeling something.
He knew most people, they don't have time to study all the details of every policy. They want answers, easy answers, even if they're not completely accurate.
It's a good lesson for anyone who wants to be a better communicator. Politicians, yeah, but also business leaders or just, someone trying to get their point across. Sometimes simple and emotional beats complicated and logical.
So one last thing to think about. How could you use these strategies in your own life? Trying to convince your boss, fighting for something you believe in, or even just winning an argument at dinner. Believe it or not, Trump's got some lessons for us on how to persuade people.
Just remember, big power, big responsibility, right? These strategies, they can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to choose.
That's all for our look at the marketing genius behind Trump's wins. Hope you learned something about how he connected with voters and pulled off those surprising victories.
And like always, keep talking about it. What did you think? Did you agree, disagree? Tell us. We want to hear from you.
That's it for today. Stay curious and keep diving deep. Need some help? Don't know why? Boost your biz. It's a breeze. Positify.ai. The future's bright. Outsource now. Reach the sky.